Attachment styles are a framework that is used to describe how people relate to each other in relationships based on how they grew up and what they experienced in childhood. Attachment styles tells us a lot about how we handle conflict, how comfortable we are with intimacy, and what we need to improve in order to have healthier relationships, not just with our primary partner, but with friends, close friends, and family members. There are 4 attachment styles in total in attachment theory. 3 of them are insecure and 1 of them is secure. So I'm going to go through all these 4 different primary attachment styles in this video. Now be mindful that attachment styles can change and evolve over time. So if you see yourself as an avoidant, for example, don't be discouraged. You can absolutely work towards becoming more secure in your attachment style and still form super healthy relationships. Now let's start with secure attachment. And this is obviously the secure attachment style. People who have secure attachment, they grew up with caregivers who were very reliable, dependent, they were emotionally available. So they grew up trusting others, and they also have trust in themselves. So they innately have a really high self-esteem, and they generally have long-lasting relationships, both when it comes to friendships and family relationships and partnerships. It doesn't mean that people who have a secure attachment can't get hurt and that they don't have feelings, but their resilience is stronger. People with a secure attachment, they are very good at communicating because they don't really fear rejection or abandonment in the same way as the people who have the insecure attachments would. So they're very happy to have conflict and know that conflict can be resolved and ultimately end up benefiting the relationships. I'm going to read a sentence out loud that illustrates how it feels to have this attachment style, okay? So, I trust that my needs will be met and I am capable of meeting the needs of others. Secure attachment is what we all want to work towards. Even if you do have an insecure attachment style, you can absolutely get there, but you do need to do some work on yourself and figure out why you do have an insecure attachment style in the first place. But you're here watching this video, which is a great sign. It means you want to learn, because the first step is to gain awareness of these attachment styles so you can identify your own patterns. And now let's move on to the first insecure attachment style, which is anxious attachment. This attachment style develops when a person received very unpredictable caregiving from their caregivers. So they never knew what was going to happen when, if they could truly rely on their caregivers, if they were going to be there or not be there. So that unpredictability has caused the person to relate to other people with a lot of anxiousness and a huge abandonment wound. So the core fear for someone who has this anxious attachment style is that they'll be abandoned. So they become extremely clingy, they need a lot of reassurance, and they have an inability to regulate their emotions by themselves. People with anxious attachment, they can be very emotionally unpredictable themselves. They can be very jealous. Those are the people who just send you 30, 50 text messages if you don't message back. Not all anxious attachers do this, but it's a symptom of this anxiousness that they feel. And so what they need to do is that they need to work on regulating and learning how to regulate their emotions and be comfortable with independence, learning that independence doesn't mean that they're going to be abandoned. You know, absence doesn't mean abandonment. So a phrase that would describe someone with this attachment style would be, I crave connection, but worry it could be taken away at any moment. Because what they want the most, people with anxious attachment, is to have connection. And then we have the avoidant or dismissive avoidant attachment style. This is sort of the attachment style that is most different from the anxious attachment style. A person who has this type of attachment style, they grew up with caregivers who were unavailable emotionally. So they had to learn how to fend for themselves and how to be very independent and not have any emotional needs, even though that's impossible. So they have learned how to suppress feelings. People with this attachment style, they're usually very unaware of feelings. They're very emotionally unintelligent because they had to be. They had to learn how to push all their emotions down so they wouldn't feel them because their needs weren't being met by their caregivers. People with this attachment style, they can seem very distant, very aloof, very, very self-sufficient, and they really fear intimacy because they don't feel safe. They equate it with rejection and pain, so they prefer to just completely stay away from it. It means that they also stay away from important conflict, and sometimes emotionally, even though they are in a relationship, they are not fully emotionally available. And a sentence that would describe this type of personality would be, I'm better off relying on myself than depending on others. The fourth attachment style, fearful avoidant attachment or disorganized attachment, is a little bit more complex. This attachment style is both a bit anxious, craving connection, but at the same time avoidant and wanting to shy away from connection and fear intimacy. What usually can cause this type of attachment is some form of trauma in childhood or trauma in general in life, which leads to the person feeling very confused because the person that they love the most was also the person that they feared the most. So if they had a caregiver that they both loved and feared at the same time, then that would lead to an attachment style like this. What you'll see with someone who has fearful avoidant attachment is that they have very erratic and dysregulated behaviors themselves. One moment they'll pull you in close, the next moment they'll be pushing you away, and you never know what you're going to get with them. It's very confusing being with someone like this, and it can be very, very painful. And if you're someone who has this attachment style, you are in a lot of pain because it's the constant conflict of interest. You want intimacy, but you fear intimacy, so you want independence. So it's a pendulum swing from one to the other, from one to the other. What we often see is that someone who has this attachment style, they can lean more towards the avoidant side, or they can lean more towards the anxious side. You'll have to see within yourself when you get triggered. Do you get more anxious or do you get more avoidant? Do you want to end everything and be by yourself, or do you want to talk about it and crave that intimacy immediately when a conflict arises? And a sentence that would describe this type of person would be, I want to be close to others, but I'm scared they'll hurt me. So you see, this is the 101 on the 4 attachment styles. It's obviously way more complex and complicated than that. I've made many videos about these attachment styles. I wish I could link to them up here, but there's so many that I don't know which one to choose. You can just go to my page and there's a playlist for the anxious, for healthy love, for avoidant, and for fearful avoidant. Just go through those videos if you really want to understand the attachment styles in more depth. It's painful having an insecure attachment style, and it doesn't result in healthy relationships unless you learn how to work on it. I hope this video was helpful in giving you a quick overview of these different attachment styles. If you do have any questions, please write them in the comment section below. If you like the video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.